And we'll go ahead and get started. So first important thing to know is here's where we are right now. We have 2 lessons that we're going to do before you walk out the virtual door today. And then next week, your DBA is due. So anytime after now, after today's lesson, you can go ahead and schedule your DBA. The link to that is on my announcement page. But because of the way that our lessons are set up next week, DBA and then 201, I'll kind of preview that for you, but 201 is really just a self-evaluation. So we won't have a live lesson next week. Instead, I will have these time slots open on my calendar. So if you want to just book your DBA during our live lesson time, since you're kind of already here and planning to work at this time. And if not, for whatever reason, just pick another time that works for you. All right. So any questions about schedule or anything? Can you believe we're already finishing up the first module? Isn't that amazing? Time flies when you're having fun, right? uh, all right. So our first lesson that we're going to do today is called the Jabberwocky, and it's a poem. And I'm curious, is anybody familiar with this, like from way, way back, probably in elementary school? Have you heard of it before? No. Oh, okay. Anybody has? Okay, you listen to the okay. So if you are not familiar with it, it's from Alice in Wonderland, and it's essentially a nonsense poem. And we're looking at it. Sometimes it's read in elementary school for like the story part of it. We're actually looking at it for the language part of it, obviously because semantics class, right? Um, and the thing that I want you to think about as we're reading through this poem is how can we make sense out of what seems like nonsense? And if I'm a betting person, which I'm not, but if I were, I would bet that you're actually going to do a really great job of making sense out of what otherwise looks like nonsense. So just with absolutely no context, if I said to you, what's a tove? Tove? Anybody have a guess? If for $1 million you had to take a guess, what would you say? What's a tove? A forest. Okay, thanks, Ezekiel. I like it. I don't know, but it sounds like stove. Okay, good. We do that a lot, right? Sounds like some other word that I know. Okay, I like it. Anybody else? Sounds like cove or cavern, like a cave. Ooh, okay, Aubrey, thanks. Okay. For $1 million, nobody else is gonna could be an animal. Okay. All right, very good. Even even though we have no context to actually know this, is there anything that you can tell me about the word tove? For example, can you figure out what part of speech it is? And if so, how? Think back to 103, I think, when we talked about parts of speech. Or even if you're like, I'm not sure, look at all of the guesses that yeah, Maria, how do you know it's a noun? Would you be willing to grab the mic and tell us how you know?
I think it could be like a person, place, or thing. That's why it's like a noun.
Okay, yeah, and even with no context, we should be able to look at this word and know that it's a noun because it's a something, right? It's a tove. And sometimes we have a before an adjective, right? A beautiful tove. But there's no, if this were an adjective, it wouldn't be modifying anybody. Exactly. If it were a verb, there wouldn't be a, because we don't do a singing, right? Okay, so even though right now this is nonsense, we still can use our knowledge of language to figure out something about this word, like it's a thing. Person, place, a thing, right? It's some, okay. What about, what does it mean for a tove, this thing, whatever it is, to gyre and gimble? Same question there. What sense can you make out of these nonsense words? Ooh, to move, okay. Ezekiel thinks it means to move. And if it does mean to move, what part of speech must gyre and gimble be? Adjective question mark? Verb question mark to joke around. Okay, we should be able to look at these words and know that, yeah, they are in fact verbs, right? Because it's to do something, right? To sing, to dance, to joke around, to whatever, right? So a noun does something, right? So even though we have this language that makes zero sense and for which we have no context, because of our basic understanding of semantics and really basic grammar, we can already look at these words and kind of make some sense out of them, which is good because what we're going to do now is actually read the poem. And what I want you to not do is not get caught up on like figuring out every single word, because probably about 50% of these words are nonsense words, right? They don't mean anything. I put in bold in the first couple of stanzas the words that you should know, right? Because they're actual words. And then the rest we're not going to go through and decode word by word, but if we are kind of paying attention as we read this, we should be able to figure out the general gist of what's being said. And again, after we read it, we'll look at it more for the semantics than the actual decoding of the poem. So that said, I know it's a little challenging to read nonsense words, but can I have a volunteer who would be willing to give it a go? You can read as much or as little as you want. And by the way, there's one more page of this, so it's two pages. I think it's like 7 stanzas total. Brave volunteer who wants to tackle Jabberwocky. Thank you so much, Tristan.
So, would you like me to just read through the whole page?
If you want to, awesome. If you're over it and you want to stop at a certain point, somebody else will rescue you, I'm sure.
All right. 'Twas brillig and the slithy toads did gyre and gimble in the wabe. All mimsy were the borogoves, and the mome raths outgrabe. Beware the jabberwock, my son, the jaws that bite, the claws that catch. Beware the jub bird, and shun the frumious bandersnatch. He took his vorpal sword in hands, long time the manzome foe he sought. So rested he by the tum tree, and stood a while in thought. And as in Uffish, or sorry, Uffish, thought he stood, the Jabberwock with eyes of flame came whiffling through the tulgey wood and burbled as it came.
Wow, great reading. Do you want to finish it? No pressure.
Sure, all right.
Thanks.
If no one else wants to, I don't want to take up the whole thing if anyone else wants to do it. But if no one else wants to do it, sure.
Yeah, nobody seems chomping at the bit.
All right.
Thanks.
1 2 and through and can't read that last part because the chat is covering it. 1 second. Or not chat, but the video.
Oh,
There
sorry.
we go. Okay. 1 2 and through. The vorpal blade went snicker snack. He left it dead, and with its head he went galumphing back. And hast thou slain the Jabberwock? Come to my arms, my beamish boy. O frabjous day, Calais, he chortled in his joy. 'Twas brillig, and the slithy toads did gyre and gimble in the wabe. All mimsy were the borogoves, and the mome raths outgrabe.
Great reading, Tristan. You have such a nice reading voice, even with what is essentially nonsense. Great reading.
I mean, that's funny because I'm really sick right now, actually,
Oh,
so I'd expect it to be the opposite.
oh. Well, you have a great sick reading voice.
Thank you.
Totally off topic, but did we talk about I love Friends? And almost everything somebody says reminds me of an episode of Friends. So if you're a Friends watcher, anybody Friends watchers in here, otherwise you're about to not get my reference at all. Okay, well, there's an episode where Phoebe gets sick and she likes, you watch it occasionally, okay? Well, she likes what it does to her voice because she thinks, she sounds good when she sings. Anyway, whatever. All right, it was a miss. Okay. Let's So funny. Agreed. By the way, there's a friend's reference hidden in the next module, so you'll find it and you'll we'll talk about it when we get there, but we're off task. Shocking. Okay, go ahead, and I just sent you the alternate for this assignment. Go ahead and open this up. Give me a thumbs up in the chat or a something to indicate that you've got this file open when you're ready. So what we're awesome, Maria's ready. Remember, just when you open the file, go ahead and make a copy of it so that you can write right on here. And while I'm waiting for the rest of you to open, oh, good, Tristan's ready, Aubrey's ready. Ezekiel, did you get your file? Making a copy, awesome. Okay. Okay, so while we're waiting on and Sebastian, who just came in, Sebastian, here's the file that you need for this assignment. So while we are we're going to go through that together in just a second, but if I had to ask, or if I had to have you tell somebody who missed the poem, like Sebastian just missed the reading of the poem, what's this poem about? We wouldn't worry about every single word, right? But just, can somebody tell us what's going on in this poem? A battle. Good. Ezekiel, you want to elaborate a little bit on that? Fighting a creature. It's about a creature. Okay. Somebody either grab the mic and or take the pen to annotate if it helps. And show me just on this page, how did you come to that conclusion that this is about some sort of battle with a creature? Because I don't think those words battle or creature are actually in here at all, are they? I don't think they are. So how do you know that's what they're about? That's what this poem's about. Ooh, good. Vorpal sword. Okay, and where do we use swords? We use them in battle. Good. Ezekiel picked up on this is, I think, the only line in the poem where the entire line is words that we know, right? Actual words. Okay, good. So beware the Jabberwock. So we're thinking that the Jabberwock is some sort of creature. Good. Somebody underlined that it's a foe. Okay. Shun is a word. Yes, it is. Is that a question or a statement? Sebastian, go ahead, grab the mic if you want to. Oh, it's a statement. Yeah. Yeah, it's
I was just wondering, you said that's, I mean, your statement's old valid. I was just wondering why shun isn't bolded.
Why shun? Where is it? Why do I not even see it?
Hold on, I'll annotate.
Oh, there it is. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah.
I don't know. It should be though, because my eyes skipped over that, I guess. Oh, Nadia's here too. Okay, good. So what is the point here? The point is that you were able to essentially come up with meaning out of what is otherwise nonsense, right, through this poem. So then the question is how? How did you do that? And if you're looking at your work file, and I'm going to put it in the chat for Nadia who just came in, at your work file, let's see if we can answer this first part together. Whoops. Let me clear our annotations. So despite the fact that much of the Jabberwocky is written in nonsense words, we can figure out its meaning by what? How did you figure that out? You all figured it out, but how? Hello. Hello. Bingo, Maria. By looking at the context, you used the words around these unfamiliar words, right? To figure out what they mean, right? So in this case, all of these words that are not bolded, except for Sean, because I missed it, you, even if you can't figure out the exact meaning of every single word, right? We're not doing like an English to Spanish translation like you often would do if you're taking a foreign language. We don't need to know the meaning of every single word. Exactly, Ezekiel, you used context clues, right? So if you're looking at your paragraph frame, which hopefully you're filling out right now as we are talking, you can figure out the meaning by using context clues, which this is almost like an exaggerated example, right? It meant to show you that you do this all the time. You use context clues all the time, and the literal definition of every single word is not really that important in instances like this. For example, look back at that first stanza. I started by asking you what a tove is, and you all had a lot of guesses. And we don't need to even land on it, but in the first stanza, we can determine that toves is what? What part of speech must toves be? And how do you know? It must be a noun. And even here, how do we know for sure? I don't think the paragraph asks you, how do you know? But how do we know that toves here has to be a noun? It's being described not with verbs, but yeah, so it's the toves, right? Like the apple, and it has an adjective right before it that's, whoops, that's modifying it, right? Like the green apple, right? If we just substitute in really easy parts of speech that, right, like the is our article, right? We put the before nouns unless it is being modified by, in this case, an adjective. So we know that toves must be an adjective just because of what we know about language. It only makes sense, right? And then if you're looking at the next part of that paragraph frame, I think it asks, and slithy, oh, we just talked about that. Slithy must be what? What part of speech is slithy? It's got to be an adjective because only adjectives modify nouns. So slithy has to be an adjective. Now, if we were looking for an actual translation of these words, then we could talk about what might, what is it similar to, all of the things that you went to at the beginning when I asked you what these words mean. But that's not really the point today, so don't stress over that. Okay, we can also use our understanding of semantics to decode verbs like, use your pen, find 2 verbs that are, that there are verbs here, but they're essentially nonsense verbs. Gyre and Gimble, perfect. Are the 2 that we talked about at the very beginning, Gyre and Gimble. Can anybody find any others? Burbled, yes, it burbled. It did something. Yep, outgrabe, definitely. Any of those would be verbs. Again, we don't need to worry about what they mean at this point, but we know that they're doing something. Okay, now, finally, I want you to finish by, even though, again, we're not going through and we're not going to decode every single word, the semantics, what we're doing right now, the semantics of this poem are important. Why? I would love for somebody to take the mic and tell me, and specifically what I'm looking for you to do is to make a connection to what we talked about last week, which was about connotation. Why are the semantics of this poem helpful when we're talking about connotation? That's okay. We can all just look at each other. Oh, Tristan, I see your hand. Thank you so much. Go ahead.
All right, so semantics. First, I should probably start off by saying what semantics is. Semantics is the studying or the, I guess, analysis of any given interpretation of a set of words or what a set of words could possibly imply. And connotation would be kind of the hidden second meaning of a word that kind of gives you the kind of like an emotional association with a word that isn't really contained within its strict definition. So now that we got the explanation of what semantics and connotation actually mean, we can connect the 2 together and describe how it helps us figure out the meaning of this nonsensical poem. So basically, we can use semantics to figure out the connotation of the words, the nonsensical words within the poem, to kind of glean some sort of meaning or glean some sort of implied meaning from words that are nonsensical and do not have a strict dictionary definition to them.
Whoa, I could not have said that better myself. Tristan, great explanation. Really good job. Exactly. So we don't have to worry about the denotation of any, maybe all of these words, because we get the connotation. What's like the feeling that's coming up in the poem? Like if you had to give the overall poem a feeling, how would you describe it?
Would you like me to answer?
Sure, anybody. We're
Oh,
tiny,
okay.
grab the mic anytime.
The feeling is kind of, it gives off a feeling like I suppose I don't know if this is strictly a feeling, but it gives off the feeling kind of the or the implication of kind of like someone's telling like a old legend or an old tale or something like that. So it
Mhm.
gives kind of the feeling of dread that this, you know, kind of old legend or tale or story is describing a battle of some sorts. And yeah, someone in the chat did say historical. That I do agree with that. That it says that, you know, the Jabberwock or whatever this creature is has already been slain, so it's a historical account.
Excellent. Very good, guys. And I don't know about for you, but for me, it has kind of like a um, what's the word? Almost like a dream-like feel, right? Like it's fantastical. We're telling the story of this legend, right? And somebody made a reference to Dungeons and Dragons, right? It has that kind of feel of, I don't know if gloomy is the right word, but like mystical, right? It's the story of this mystical creature. So the words that are used, right, even slithy, they feel that way, even though we don't know what the actual connotation is, because we don't know what the actual denotation of the word is. That's okay. So the connection that Tristan was saying, Nadia said in the chat, and I think I saw some others in the chat as well, is that the the semantics help evoke that feeling that the authors is trying to get across to us, right? Some of the words are, lots of the words are strange and unfamiliar, and strange unfamiliar things often we interpret as like fantastical or dreamlike or mythical or any of those words that you associate with what we just read. All right, pausing for a second to make sure that you all have your one, ooh, and to clear the annotations. All right, so for this one, all you had to do, and hopefully you were doing it as we were talking, is go through and erase what I have in highlighted and put your words. Give me a thumbs up or some sort of indication that you are good to go with 106. You have your alternate assignment. Awesome. And a couple ways you can either submit this file as an attachment, or you can just copy and paste it and stick it right in the comments box. But if you want to go do that now, I'm going to pause for just a second while a few others of you are finishing up. Aubrey, I see your hand. If go ahead.
Is it okay if you go back to the poem real quick, or the part, because for the words that we picked, I forgot how to spell them because they were kind of...
Yeah, that's all right. It's
Okay.
going to tell you they're misspelled anyways. But there you go. All right, Nadia's good. Maria's good. All right. Aubrey's good. Okay, looks like everybody's good. And if necessary, I can always come back here afterwards. All right, with that said, we are going to move on to the last lesson in module 1. I don't know how this went by so quickly, which is talking about where we get new words, right? So it would be great if we could just, you know, do what Lewis Carroll did and just make up words, but that's generally not how we get new words. But as we'll see, somewhere around 1,000 words, I think it mentions this in this video, somewhere around 1,000 words every year are added to our dictionary, right? Which is important. Either way, Ezekiel, you can do either one. I'm pretty flexible on that. which is important because it's a good illustration of how language evolves so much, right? We add new words and we stop using words all the time. So before we watch this quick video, this is the quiz that we're going to go through together. So again, you'll be done when we leave here, but as a strategy, when a quiz comes from a video, it's a good idea to have the quiz open before you start, right? So go ahead and open that Google Forms quiz. This is the same, it's not an alternate, it's the same. If you're watching the recording, it's the same one that's in the course. Okay, and start, if you would please, by putting your name on that Google form. And then we will go through all of these together. But first, I do want you to watch this short video. It's about 5 minutes. And then we will talk it through on the flip side. So, okay, give me a thumbs up if you can hear that, please. Or just somebody click yes in the chat. Awesome. Thank you, guys.
Every year, about 1,000 new words are added to the Oxford English Dictionary. Where do they come from, and how do they make it into our everyday lives? With over 170,000 words currently in use in the English language, it might seem we already have plenty. Yet, as our world changes, new ideas and inventions spring forth, and science progresses, our existing words leave gaps in what we want to express. And we fill those gaps in several ingenious, practical, and occasionally peculiar ways. One way is to absorb a word from another language. English has borrowed so many words over its history that nearly half of its vocabulary comes directly from other languages. Sometimes, this is simply because the thing the word describes was borrowed itself. Rome and France brought legal and religious concepts like altar and jury to medieval England, while trade brought crops and cuisine like Arabic coffee, Italian spaghetti, and Indian curry. But sometimes another language has just the right word for a complex idea or emotion, like naivete, machismo, or schadenfreude. Scientists also use classical languages to name new concepts. Clone, for example, was derived from the ancient Greek word for twig to describe creating a new plant from a piece of the old. And today, the process works both ways, with English lending words like software to languages all over the world. Another popular way to fill a vocabulary gap is by combining existing words that each convey part of the new concept. This can be done by combining two whole words into a compound word, like airport or starfish, or by clipping and blending parts of words together, like spork, brunch, or internet. And unlike borrowings from other languages, these can often be understood the first time you hear them. And sometimes a new word isn't new at all. Obsolete words gain new life by adopting new meanings. Villain originally meant a peasant farmer, but in a twist of aristocratic snobbery, came to mean someone not bound by the knightly code of chivalry, and therefore a bad person. A geek went from being a carnival performer to any strange person, to a specific type of awkward genius. And other times, words come to mean their opposite through irony, metaphor, or misuse. Like when sick or wicked are used to describe something literally amazing. But if words can be formed in all these ways, why do some become mainstream while others fall out of use or never catch on in the first place? Sometimes the answer is simple, as when scientists or companies give an official name to a new discovery or technology. And some countries have language academies to make the decisions. But for the most part, official sources like dictionaries only document current usage. New words don't originate from above, but from ordinary people, spreading words that hit the right combination of useful and catchy. Take the word meme, coined in the 1970s by sociobiologist Richard Dawkins from the ancient Greek for imitation. He used it to describe how ideas and symbols propagate through a culture like genes through a population. With the advent of the internet, the process became directly observable in how jokes and images were popularized at lightning speed. And soon, the word came to refer to a certain kind of image. So meme not only describes how words become part of language, the word is a meme itself. And there's a word for this phenomenon of words that describe themselves: autological. Not all new words are created equal. Some stick around for millennia, some adapt to changing times, and others die off. Some relay information, some interpret it. But the way these words are created and the journey they take to become part of our speech tells us a lot about our world and how we communicate within it. On the TED
Can't you just like watch that all day, or is it just me? I mean, I geek out over stuff like that.
What were they called? Auto what?
Autological.
Yeah,
Auto-
sesquipedalian is autological. That's why I love saying I'm not sesquipedalian.
it's great, right? The way that we get new words, sometimes random, but it's pretty interesting. And hopefully you learned something new. Meme was a new one for me. I did not know that until I watched this video a couple months ago. Go ahead. Not trying to play it again. Okay, so somebody had the mic. Sorry, go ahead and did I cut someone off? No, I was dreaming that. Okay. Okay, so on your quiz, have your Google form open and let's talk through a couple of these, well, all of them. So just from your recollection, how do we get new words into our language? What's one way that we get new words? Anybody grab the mic and share with us, especially if we haven't heard your voice yet. Magic, no. How do we get new words? What's one thing you saw in the video? Thanks, Aubrey, go ahead.
Okay, I couldn't find the unmute button.
That's
but
fair.
like they said in the video, borrowing them from other languages are a way that we get new words. And I've seen this even without the video, just as examples. Like in a lot of different languages for like basic simple terms, you can see the same word reused and written to mean the same thing.
Absolutely. Yes. There I think this video estimated 50%, and I've seen, I think the article that I linked in your lesson estimates 80%. So we'll say somewhere between 50 and 80% of our language is actually borrowed and adapted from other languages. So we call those loan words. So borrowed words is a primary means of us getting new words. This might come later, but while we're talking about loan words, why do we borrow words from other languages? Maybe pick up on that in the video. Like, I thought a good example was machismo or macho. We borrowed from Spanish language. Why? Because it's describing something that we didn't otherwise have a word for. So we don't need to create a new word. If the word and the thing that is being described are new concepts in our language, then we just take them both. Exactly. It makes it easier to explain concepts. Exactly. All right, very good, guys. How about number 2? Scientists sometimes use what to name an idea? And this maybe is not the best question. And I know that because a lot of people are getting it wrong, but but what's a way that the video mentioned that scientists name new ideas? Yeah, exactly, Aubrey. Good. They use words from a classical language. And even though this I think is probably not a great quiz question, I'll probably change it for next semester. Let's assume you did not remember this, because part of what we're in here for is to hopefully make you better standardized test takers. If you were taking this quiz or you saw this question on a standardized test, we could probably eliminate, which of those choices could you eliminate right away? Yeah, I would eliminate random phonetic sounds right away. That just doesn't even make sense, right? People don't just randomly put sounds together and create words. That's not logical. And I would probably also eliminate the synonym. I see a couple of you saying in the chat, right? Because if it's a new idea, we probably wouldn't use a synonym to describe something new, right? Because synonym means that it's similar or close to. So then we would at least be guessing from 50-50. And it also wouldn't make sense if it's a new idea to use an existing term. So hopefully we could use logic or, process of elimination to end up with words from classical language, which is the correct answer. All right, good. Let's talk about number 3. So we come up with new words because we are trying to fill gaps in our language, right? Like we don't have a way to describe something, or we have a new concept and we need to fill in a gap. And what's one way that we can do that? Again, you can use that same process of elimination or logic, even if you don't recall from the video. Good, Ezekiel, by combining existing words. Well done. Well done. Like backpack. I need a way to describe something that I carry on my back. I take those 2 words, put them together, have a new word. All right, this is another one lots of people are getting wrong when they're taking their quiz on their own. Ignore it, right? I mean, so some of them are just obviously distractors. The word meme, I just found this particularly interesting, came about. Now, I think I know what's throwing people off, but somebody talk me through your logic, whether you remember from the video or not. How did we get this word meme, if you recall? Yes. Well, the word itself, good. I heard them mention something with gene. Okay, Aubrey, good. Very good. So again, if this were, you wouldn't be taking a standardized test from a video, but if it were a reading passage, we could go back. You got it, Nadia. We could go back and go, I remember reading something about gene and meme, and that's correct. So the word itself, the reason borrowing from another language is not the right answer is because the word meme was not borrowed from another language. The word meme was created by borrowing the root from another language. So it was an analogy with the word gene. Yep. You guys are awesome. All right, well, one more here. First of all, what does it mean if something is obsolete? No longer used. Yeah, good. It's no longer used. Obsolete words can gain new life or start being used again. Why? Well, not really why. By giving them new meaning, right? If we take a word and we essentially change the meaning, that obsolete word can get back into circulation. Because remember, the really important point was we talk about words that are in the dictionary are words that are commonly used in circulation, right? We don't have, you can say anything you want with your friends, and maybe you have your own, inside jokes and your own kind of language, but they don't get into the dictionary unless they're commonly used, right? So, and if something is, an old word is commonly repurposed, essentially, it can end up in the dictionary. All right, good, guys. Next, we talked a little bit about loan words. And again, I told you somewhere between 50 and 80%. It's totally a guesstimate, again, because language is so fluid and always changing. Loan words are words that we borrow from another language, but the question here is why? And I gave you a couple of examples of loan words, some from the video and some not. Why do we borrow words from other languages? Like, why did we decide to make paparazzi a word in English? Or kindergarten? Go ahead, Aubrey.
I'd say that they already have like an understood meaning. So I'm trying to say word, but it's not a word. The thing that people are trying to label already has a word for that same meaning. So it's easier to just bring it over from somewhere else since it's already understood and known as that.
Exactly. We're bringing the word and the concept that the word refers to, right? So kindergarten talks about a, or is a word that means, I don't know, whatever the denotation is, you know, place where children grow or something like that. It actually means like garden of children, something like that, right? So the word and the concept of kindergarten we have taken, and so there's no need to come up with a new word. We just use theirs, right? Croissant, right? The thing, the actual pastry, and the word, they already exist somewhere else. When we take the pastry, we might as well take the word for it, right? We don't need to come up with a new word because we just use the French one. Same with literally all of those, delicatessen or deli, right? We took the concept and we take the word, and that is what we call loan words. All right, good. Stop me if I'm going too quickly. All right, then let's talk about number 7. Number 7 asks you for, I think, I don't have the quiz in front of me, but I think it asks for an example of a portmanteau. Is that right? Okay, what is a portmanteau? And then give an example. So even this was from the article, which we didn't read because we don't have time. But I gave you some examples here of portmanteau. So somebody tell me, just looking at these examples, can you define portmanteau for us? Yeah, it's where we create a new word by combining 2 already existing words. So if you say Brexit now, everybody knows what Brexit means, but Brexit wasn't a word before Brexit, right? It was combined, it was a combination of Britain and exit. Or if you say, oh, she's so hangry, people know what that means, but that's a relatively new word. It's a portmanteau, and it's a combination, obviously, of hungry and angry, like you're grouchy when you're hungry. Interestingly, the word portmanteau is, anybody know how would we classify this word? We just talked about it in number 6. No. All right. Portmanteau. Anybody take French? Portmanteau is a loan word. This is a French word. A portmanteau is actually a suitcase in French, and port means to carry, like portable, right? Something that you can easily carry. So the word portmanteau is a loan word. A portmanteau is a word that is a combination of 2 different words to create an all new word. And you can use any of these. You could probably think of a million others. Spork. I think Sebastian, was it Sebastian? Sebastian's favorite word is spork. Kidding. Right, but we do this with lots of words. And then they become part of our vernacular, right? Like motel. If you say, oh, I'm staying in a motel tonight, everybody knows what that is because it's now part of our vernacular. It's part of our dictionary. And you know, it depends on how frequently they're used in terms of how long it takes for that to happen. But again, just when was Brexit? When was Brexit? Less than 10 years ago, right? So less than 10 years ago, we didn't even have this word Brexit, and now it's a word that everybody knows. English is cool, right? All right, and last but not least, well, by the way, there are lots of other ways that we get language or we get new words, but these are just the probably the main ones, which is why we're focusing on these. The last is what we call back formation. And I don't know, I think this is almost a misnomer. It's maybe a little bit confusing, but back formation means we started with a longer word and we did some clipping either of the beginning or usually of the end of the word to create a new word. And a lot of words that are back formed, you probably don't even know that they are, like donate and donation. Donation as a noun was originally the word, and we have back formed that by getting rid of the right ion words that end in ion are usually nouns, getting rid of, it's not an affix, it's part of the word, and changing it to donate. Same thing with editor, was originally the word as a noun, and then what does an editor do? Well, he or she edits, so editor became the verb edit. Okay. So back formation, it's always shortening an original word. Opt from option, that one you might have been able to figure out. But it's not the same as adding affixes to a word, like angry and angrily, right? That there we're adding affixes. Back formation is about removing either affixes or parts of the word, things that maybe people thought were affixes. Okay, that was a lot. Look at that, it's 146. I was really close, guys. Questions about any of that? I know that was a lot of stuff, but questions about any of those ways that we get language? Okay, then if you don't have any questions, you were hopefully just doing that quiz with me. So you can go ahead and click submit. But then in order for me to grade your quiz, I need you to go into your grade book, and in the comments box, just put a statement that says something like this: I completed this quiz during the 9-5 live lesson. That will prevent us from having, you know, any flags if we have very similar answers. Incidentally, if you're watching the recording, obviously it's the same quiz that's in the lesson. So just put, if you're watching the recording, put a note for me. I completed this quiz while watching the live lesson recording. Okay. And last thing, because I know a couple of you came in a little bit late, which is fine. Just want to make sure that you are aware, next week we have our DBA on our pace chart, so we will not meet next week. I'll probably send you a quick video just to give you some context for 201, but 201 is it's a self-evaluation that you're going to do about yourself as a grammarian. So it's really not something we could do together anyways. And last thing I will say before I stop talking is, if you have not signed up for your DBA yet, please do that. This is a lot of what we'll talk about. We'll talk about what we talked about last week, connotation and denotation. We'll talk about where words come from. Maybe parts of speech, not usually, because nobody really likes to talk about that, but it's pretty simple. So, all right, that said, that's all for me. I'm going to stop the recording. And if you have questions, thoughts, comments, issues, concerns,